So that's one of the other things I try to promote, is how to share that knowledge. So I use a lot of webinars. I like to try to put a lot together online so people can get to it independently, and then they can do it at their own speed and their own pace. And I do believe that having other mentors, SCORE is an excellent source for me to send people to get a little bit more grounding in the mentorship, and then lifelong learning is critical.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk, David, a little bit about that, resources. Do you feel, first of all, the resources that you offer here, do you feel that they're adequate? Do we need more? Do we need different kinds? Do you think that skill sets for the 55 plus are unique, or basically just the ones that you need to build a business? How do you taper that? Are you seeing more people coming in?
Thank you and good morning. I want to give a little background. We're underneath the SBA, Small Business Administration. The Miami office runs from Tampa south, and I think it's either 22 or 24 counties. In the last 2 fiscal government years, SBA does not give loans. They guarantee the loans with the banks. The last 2 years, they have guaranteed loans of over $1.3 billion. It's an unfathomable number. What that means is all of those people were turned down by loans by 1 or 2 banks, and then the bank said, okay, we'll take you to SBA, and SBA said, yes, we'll back the loan. So it's dynamic. I have, I love the mentoring. I've retired from my own small business for 30 years. I started out with an SBA loan, and I had mentors. So after getting the Lord's name in vain every hole in the golf course, I decided I'd volunteer and do something good for a change. I have about 25 clients. About 15 of them I think are going to make it. I think 10 I put a little washy. I have not seen many people over 55. I would guess I'm seeing a tremendous amount of women coming in. I would say that 50% of the people I am mentoring are women. The age group I would guess is 25 to 40. And it's a more that they need to somebody to talk to, and then have somebody to review what they're thinking of doing and helping them go from the concept to thinking of why they're different than anybody else and why they are going to be successful. From the 55 and older, from what I would like to do, I would guess that I'd like to have a job placement area for those who are interested in working. Probably 5 of my clients could use somebody like, there's a young lady who started a bakery, who's very successful, but she needs help. And is there somebody out there that was in the bakery business that would like to come into work 4 hours, 10 hours? So I see a need, from my perspective, from SCORE, of the 55, to do volunteering for SCORE, number 1, and number 2, job placements for a minimum amount of hours per week that they would like to work.
You know, I want to talk a little bit more about the development side of this, but the other part too is this could be something that local governments, something the universities, you know, we're not just talking about incubators. As David says, maybe a job placement, even a more centralized volunteer capitalizing on that entrepreneurial aspect. So there are different possibilities, and part of the thing that I hope that we can bring out here is just thinking about out of the box. And I know that a lot of it is financially based, but just let's talk ideal situations, what we would like to see. Lisa, what's the statistic that Monica gave us about women over the age of 50?
50% of women over the age of 50 are single.
Yeah, did you hear that? That is an incredible factor to take into account as well. Tyson, let's move on to you with the financial aspect of this. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing in your clientele. Also, and I know you can't specifically say how to find financial, you know, don't raise your 401k or second mortgage your house or whatever, but generally, what kind of avenues do you encourage people to at least explore or investigate a little bit more of what might work for them?
Can everybody hear me okay?
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna leave the microphone on the table and just kind of talk about what we're seeing a lot with clients when they're coming to that age, like, okay, I'm 60 years old, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna retire? Should I quit working for, I don't know, Siemens, whatever, what have you, or should I get out and start my own business? Where's my income gonna come from? Let me ask you questions, this is gonna be interactive. Why do people stay at work for someone else?
Healthcare.
Healthcare, I heard that, what else?
Risk averse.
Okay, they're risk averse, scared. I don't know if it's gonna work if I go out and do something else. I gotta have the healthcare, what else?
You don't wanna die.
We don't wanna die. How many people, yeah, there's a statistic on that, there's a lot of people who retire. So I tell people when they're thinking about retirement, to that point, what are you gonna do when you retire? You gotta have something to get you up every day, or else you'll stop getting up every day. And that's an important part, that's just part of the psychology of financial planning when we're dealing with clients is, okay, we gotta make some decisions, we gotta understand first and foremost, why are we gonna retire? Why are we there to begin with? Why did we stay so long? So a lot of why questions. A lot of people stay because they've got retirement vesting. Things like pensions and whatnot. Hey, I've got this big tangent curve at the end of my career, and I get all this extra wealth that pops into my pocket. I get locked in if I stay for another 6 months, a year, 2 years. Then once I do go out, what am I gonna do? So I start asking those kind of questions. What are you passionate about? What kind of career fields do you think they get into? Service. What else? Franchises. See a lot of that.
Definitely consulting.
Consulting. I see more consulting than anything else. Let me describe the perfect job for someone who retires from a major corporation. I'm going to retire, I'm gonna take my pension or my 401k or whatnot, and I'll have some income, and I'm going to keep doing that which I enjoyed doing while I worked there and nothing else. That's the perfect job, and I'm gonna be a consultant. I see that over and over and over again. So where do they work? What kind of bricks and mortar do they need? None. And who's really, really happy to hire that person as a consultant?
People that just work.
Their former employer. Because now they don't have to pay benefits. They don't have to pay health care. I mean, this is one of the cheapest employees, and think of the brain power, think of the experience this person has coming back in. So maybe it's a demographic, the question is, am I gonna go out there and start a business? And from a real estate perspective, do I need bricks and mortar? No. What do I need? I need a home office, I need infrastructure, I need Wi-Fi, right? I need access.
Support systems.
Describe that.
When you're in a corporation or in a business, you've got a plethora of people who can do the small work that you don't want to do anymore. And where do you find that in this environment? Where do you find somebody who's going to support your computer systems? Where are you going to find somebody who's going to do your filing and keep your paperwork in place? Where's your accountant going to be? You're moving out, you're doing something all on your own, so you're kind of in this never land. And we don't have that, at least in this area, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have a way to connect to that open environment where you can find that support system easily and have them working for you on a consulting basis. You want somebody doing stuff for you on the same basis, just as independent. They can come on Tuesday afternoon when you're that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Diane, I'm gonna come to your finance part of your question in a second.
That's
That's
part of
brilliant.
The support system, and I think part of that element is part of the social fabric, that you get isolated when you leave a corporation or a job, and you need to have that social fabric along with the support system.
I'm hearing a lot of people because of the social fabric, they're talking a lot more. Almost every one of my clients at some point in time mentions the 55 and older community. Should we consider moving to one of those? Okay. Well, if you're gonna build a 55 and older community, you wanna make sure it's got all the support structure and resources. What are the 2 things in Lisa's survey that people look for when they relocate? What are the top 2 things? Caught my eye.
Proximity, friends, family, watching it, right?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you to. Healthcare?
Healthcare, proximity to retail, proximity to friends and family.
Retail. Service, retail and services, you categorize them together.
Service and
That was the
retail.
green, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big part of it, and just to your point. So finances, how do I finance this endeavor? How do I get my name out, maybe do a little bit of marketing. How am I gonna pay for that? Or if I am gonna have a brick and mortar, where am I gonna get the money to do that? There's a lot of different ways to do it. You can pull the money out of some sort of a qualified plan, whether it's a pension, a 401k, an IRA account, but what do you have to pay then? Taxes, right. And if you're under age 59 and a half, you got a 10% premature withdrawal penalty. You don't wanna touch that unless you do a 72T distribution. If you want me to talk about that later, I'm happy to. But that's a whole nother animal. I saved a guy's house with it once, but that's a whole other story. It's actually pretty fun. So anyway, where else? Yeah, home equity line of credit. So you can use the equity in your home, but if you're in the process of moving, you're gonna have that. What else? Friends and family. So let's talk just a little bit about the demographic difference between the 55 and older entrepreneur and the younger entrepreneur. Younger entrepreneur, it's friends and family money. They can't qualify for a loan. They just can't. You know, you get a 22-year-old that graduates from college and they step out and they go, I'm gonna knock set the world on fire. I'm gonna knock the cover off the ball. I'm gonna be fantastic. And the bank says, what? Can you pay me back? What do you have? Whereas the person who's retiring, they've got assets. And the bank says, okay, I'll make you a business loan, but you're gonna have to personally guarantee it. So that's the biggest difference. You go to the bank, you're gonna have to do that. You can pull from your own money, it's generally not the best way to do it. Here's the other biggest issue I see constantly from people that are starting businesses in second careers. Take a guess as to what it might be. What do you think the biggest issue is? Once they start the business, what's the biggest mistake they make?
They think they're successful immediately and then back off. They don't have enough energy to continue. And so they wait, usually be successful in the first 18 months and then they're so successful that they're done.
Yeah, cash flow projections are off. I'll add to that. So you got somebody who comes out and they say, I'm gonna do this because I know my former corporation is gonna hire me as a consultant right away. I've already got this laid out. So I retire, I work for them, and if I work for them for 5 or 10 years, I'm good. I got retirement income and I got all my stuff, I'm great. But what happens is that contract lasts for 6 months, they renew it, 18 months later, you don't have a contract, what do? You did nothing to market yourself, your business, consulting practice, and you're done. So the cash flow projections are way off. So we deal with all this with our clients. I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, thank you. Christine, let me ask you, let's try to tie it into the built environment, and that can be done in a lot of ways. And there are a couple members of the audience, I think, that already touched on some things that I'd like to explore a little bit more. But what are you seeing that we can encourage more of this entrepreneurship? It is lacking brick and mortar in a large respect, and yet you do need a base. Is it home? Is it somewhere else? What are you seeing?
Well, I think we're seeing actually we're seeing a variety of things start to happen in the built environment. In terms of product type, for a single family home plan, I'm starting to see a lot of my clients ask, okay, well, I've been building this floor plan for a long time, but I don't think it's really resonating with the retiree group, which is really growing in the area. What kind of modifications do I need to make to this floor plan to make it more marketable? Some things we are seeing are aging in place. It's not necessarily related to the careers, but just in general, we're seeing aging in place features in these homes. We are seeing a den or third bedroom optional, but always, and within large master plan communities, we're starting to see an awareness of, these people are working longer, or they may need some professional space in their amenity center. One thing I've really noticed lately are conference rooms available for rent in an amenity center. So for these people who may be working from home, they still have a professional space to go to, and they can meet with clients, and it gives them a little bit of both worlds. And I actually wanted to mention Babcock Ranch, their hatchery. I think that's very unique and insightful and forthcoming, having the co-working space within a master plan community. I haven't seen that anywhere else, and I think it's very, very a forefront of the future. Because aside from just the 55 and older, we're seeing a lot more entrepreneurs of people, just in the middle of their working careers. So the demand for co-working space, for office space, is really, I think, going to keep growing And that's why, you know, you're not seeing these very large office developments anymore, because everyone is kind of doing their own thing. You can work remotely, you can telecommute, employers are more flexible. My employer is a great example. We're based out of California, and I have an office, here in Fort Myers in a co-working space. So, I think we're starting to see developers really focus on that and, offer more options.
Is everybody familiar with the backup, the hatchery, is that? I am
Yes.
not. Can you talk a little bit about that? And are you all familiar with, do you know about that in this area? I don't know how
Should we
much.
start with Babcock Ranch or?
Yeah.
So it's an 18,000 acre master plan community.
Can you all hear her?
It's an 18,000 acre master plan community, northeast Fort Myers, so about like 35 minutes from here. And it is going to be powered by the sun. FPL has built a 75 megawatt solar facility on our land, and half the 18,000 acres will be preserved. And Amanda here is doing a lot of the land planning and future amenities. Being green and having a new town that has its residents can have a sense of purpose is huge for us, and we are open to the public. And when we were sitting down, I think, to plan the first amenities, we have a restaurant, our offices are there, and then we have a sales center, an outfitter store, and we'll be building our K-8 charter school. Well, it's in the process of being built. It'll be open this upcoming school year. And then we have our market cafe with the hatchery on top of it. And we knew that this Encore career concept was going to be really huge, and we have a feeling that our first residents are going to be like boomers and maybe young families because of the school, and that there's a huge interest for people who are like independent workers or entrepreneurs or I don't know, people who want to start a new career after retiring. So that's kind of how we came up with the concept of the hatchery. Also, my dad worked at GM for 40 years, and he retired and then started his Encore career about like 7 years ago, and he does a lot of consulting and he does advising for Google, and like has now 7 careers, and he works out of the house, but I think he misses having like a conference space or somewhere to meet his clients or do interviews, and he usually goes to like a local coffee shop, but it's not right, and so that was part of the inspiration behind it as well. And then
Can you talk about what's planned in the hatchery?
So right now it's still in the process of being built, but it will be a membership based, and you can have like a flexible like hot desk if you just go in there and you can take a seat. There'll be day passes. You can have a permanent desk, and we have about 7 offices that will be available. And then beyond that, we wanted to give people a chance to have more career support. So there'll be different service packages that you can have. So you can have if you're interested in starting an Encore career, you can get the support to just, transition into a new career and start it. And if you already have your own independent career, then you can have some services to maintain it, like help with marketing or, your business plan or something like that.
Yeah. So it sounds as if you have elements of what Mary was talking about, needing the outside activities, facilities, so that you can keep the health as in this age group. But what I find interesting, and Lisa and Kelly, where's Kelly? And Diane too, I don't think we've heard before somebody that planned for both groups. From the other workshops, we've seen where, there's, in Orlando, there's a area downtown called Canvas, which is really the open space, very geared toward heard conversations wanting to blend, but nobody really was to that point. So it's very interesting to me that you're already looking at the scope of blending both talents of the
And
different
we
age
see
groups.
the benefit of that mentor. I think boomers really reach this point in their lives where they want to mentor a younger generation, and then the younger generation wants to learn from boomers, so.
Yeah.
And I want to interject it, again, that's why I promoted the SCORE. We have a very active SCORE community between Sarasota and Manatee. In fact, it's a Minnesota SCORE, so it's actually between the two of them. We have grown tremendously in our co-work locations, very similar to what Hatchery has got. We also use the caregiver area in our future in Florida, specifically on this coast, is going to be critical, because we don't have the nursing and the level of care that we need for the number of people that are going to need it as they age. So we have a caregiver accelerator that's working in St. Petersburg from support from AARP. They're looking at ideas, entrepreneurial ideas, to help bring the caregiving out in the focus. We need more of those kinds of things, looking at what it is we have. We have energy needs, as you said, the renewable sun energy, but we also have water areas that we have to think about too from the standpoint of ecology. So my point is that if we can, again, do the same kinds of things as we see AARP doing, focusing on caregiving and focus on some of those other areas, we may be able to bring together people with these kinds of ideas that come up with the actual solution to the problems and create more entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So are you suggesting having it grouped by industry almost, like incubators grouped by industry? Or co-work spaces grouped by industry?
I'm saying that would be excellent if we could do that. It may be the ecology area, and one of the two aspects may be water, because we have a tremendous need for clean water, drinkable water in our particular community, as well as the actual energy with the sun that we have, that kind of capability. The other thing we have is we have a tremendous amount of capable people in our senior community that we could engage, and not necessarily engage full-time, but engage for them to be listeners and to be able to validate some of our ideas. So if we can find a way to tap that resource, to be able to pull them in and keep them involved, that's only going to grow the health of our community, because people are living longer and aging better. So we have to be able to help them also help us make a better community.
Anybody else in the development of planned community here that might want to add your thoughts about a hatchery, or what you think might work? Or
Oh, I think it's a fantastic amenity, and that's what we're here, is to see the trends, to learn the trends for what's coming.
Yeah.
With this new, we call it a tsunami of baby boomers.
Right, right.
And their demands are.
I think it's interesting, again, to see a proactive approach, because a couple of the places have been very reactive in terms of what we found for workshops. Yes?
Yes, in some of my consulting work prior, many years ago, I worked as a consultant, primarily really with WCI, in another firm, and we saw that a lot of the communities and the trends that were coming up had a lot to do with the number of rooms and facilities that were available for different types of activities, such as arts and crafts and various different groups that would meet. And that, for instance, the Sun City product type was really attractive. And one of the reasons it was so attractive to many of the residents, not only did they have graduated living accommodations, so you could start off with maybe a single family home and then gradually move to assisted living through maybe 6 different steps and have different products available, but that they had so many rooms available for use for folks that would create a volunteer organization. Maybe they even had service groups that would meet, because we're looking at communities that have thousands and thousands of residents. But that was one of the areas that made that so attractive. And many of the other communities that I've worked on did not have the number of facilities available, which did not make it as conducive to a meeting area. Also having a room similar to what we're in right now in a facility where you can bring in entertainment and educational processes. I think what we're now seeing is that as the process continues with retirement ages, and I did have a question that I'll leave you with, but we're seeing that, you know, that now there are people that really do want to continue to work and have so much to give to our, not only the community, but to the nation, to the world. But a question that I have for you all is the 55 number. If someone could explain to me why we're stuck on the 55 number and why we're not looking at maybe the advent of when the technology entered into our lives. I was just sitting here and writing down the age of people now, what year they were born, maybe what year if they went through a standard track when they went to college. And for instance, in my particular case, when I went to college, okay, this will date me, but I know a lot of people in here and they know how old I am. I mean, my computer course that I started with was key punching and Fortran. And by the time I had advanced into my professional career, I can remember I was director of planning and engineering out of the Port Authority, and Wang computers came out. And that was my first experience. And by then, I had secretaries. So I have had one heck of a time, and I'm not even close yet to trying to catch up to technology. I see, you know, my daughter, who is now just about to turn 30, she's behind now too. So my question really had to do with, besides giving you some of that information, the 55 age. Where did that come from? And I guess that would mean that they were 55, they would have been born around 62, 63. And I guess the question is, shouldn't we be looking a little bit about making a correlation to the technology when some of this stuff came out? And then also maybe looking at the laws and how they're geared towards the 55 number. And I'm not sure which ones are. Maybe you all could give me an overview at some point, either through the group or privately. So the technology, when it came in, the laws, and you know, once again, my question on the 55. Thank you.
I think that's another way to look at this. The 55, I think, is just a base of how they generationally categorize people. We had an interesting comment out of Jacksonville. One of the planned communities, instead of 55 plus, have actually pushed that back to 45 plus. But it's, again, just a different way of looking at things. As for the laws, one of my thoughts in questions, and I don't know, Tyson or Jean, you might know, again, federal laws, do we need to help and encourage this entrepreneurship? Do we need to take a look at our taxes, how Social Security is distributed in terms of how much money you can make, and do those elements need to be looked at now in preparation for what's coming in terms of the numbers of people doing this? Yes?
I have a question for Tyson. Can you tell me what ROBs are, if you know, or self-directed IRAs, to be used for small business? Using your IRA, which normally you can use an IRA for collateral for a loan, for a small business loan. But self-directed IRAs or putting them into a corporation for stocks has become popular, but I need to know a little bit more about it if you have any information. If not, no
Be
worries.
interested to see how that plays out, 'cause it's almost self-dealing, which is prohibited by the IRS. And we actually, about a third of my business is retirement plans, 401ks. So a self-directed 401k plan or an individual 401k plan, a UNI sometimes. A lot of companies have these things where they offer them, and we've got those too, but they've all got different names, but essentially mean the same thing. I'm an individual entrepreneur, and I'm going to work every day, and I wanna have a 401k. I don't work for this corporation anymore, whether it's General Motors or whatnot. Now I'm on my own, but I don't need all this income, because I gotta pay taxes on it. So now I'm over age 50, and I'm working, I've got earned income. How much money can I put into a 401k every year of my own and then deduct it off my taxes? $24,000 a year, okay? 18,000 plus the 16,000 a year. Okay, so you throw in this $24,000 a year into this thing. Can I use that money for my business? Here's a true story. We looked at a 401k plan, and this guy wanted us to take it over as their financial advisors. And we sat down and he says, yeah, well, the 401k plan, most of the money is in self-directed accounts. So the employees, his employees, ran all their money. But a portion of the money we direct as a company, and it owns a building. So, well, that's interesting. Where's this building? Well, you're sitting in it. Well, that's just wrong. There's only one company out there that I know of that's allowing people to do that. They're based out of the Northwest. And I told him, I said, I won't manage your plan, because it looks like and it smells like self-dealing. And if this thing ever gets hit by the Department of Labor, you're gonna have a huge issue. So to your question, can I use my money from my IRA or my 401k and put it into my own business? Not really, but you can take income off of it and pay the taxes off of it. But what if you're under age 59 and a half? That's when you pay the income tax plus pay a 10% penalty on top of it. And only under very strict rules can you access that and not pay that 10% penalty, but the income tax still hits you.
One,
You've got a microphone.
I'm sorry, but we tend, I'm looking at most Collier County and Southern Lee County, and we focused in these planned communities around here, and the level of real estate inflation in the market has drastically changed the demographic and the financial demographic of this community. And I'm wondering how the developers who are kind of pricing because of this inflation, not because of what the infrastructure costs and not because of what the, although I will admit Babcock Ranch looks like it's gonna have a lot more diversity than other places. But we're pricing ourselves out of the market for people who are not as affluent as when a lot of people who are now aging in place here, who are able to get in less expensively, and they live in this environment. And this is I think this is a real problem we're gonna have in this aging area and how we deal with it.
I can take that one. You're exactly right that we're facing a huge affordability crisis here in Southwest Florida. Not only new home price appreciation, but resale price appreciation. You know, it was double digit annually from about 2012 through 2015. We've really seen resistance.
Back to 2000.
Well, that was
when these people moved here.
right, but I'm just going back in recent history following the recession where values really kind of plummeted. They haven't actually in Collier County, they've surpassed their peak, like in the mid-2000s. They haven't quite yet in Lee County, but the price appreciation is a huge issue. And it's not necessarily because the builders are trying to make a profit. I mean, there are a lot of things that go into this price appreciation. A lot of it is the cost of land. We've seen land sellers really, you know, I sold my acre, you know, Joe sold his for $100,000, and 2 years ago I'm going to sell mine for $150,000. That's been the environment. I think we're starting to see some movement on that, where land sellers are coming back a little bit to reality. Another huge issue I would say has been the construction and labor costs, which have increased immensely. So yes, we have an affordability issue here in Southwest Florida. Is it builder driven? Not necessarily. Is it developer driven? Not necessarily, but it does need to be addressed. And what I have seen just from my clients recently within the last year is how can I deliver a more affordable product to these, you know, buyers that can't necessarily pay over $500,000 for a home in Collier County, and even Southern Lee County is getting very expensive. So what I think you'll really start to see, and what's starting to happen already, is more attached product coming to market. Neal Communities, which is one of our sponsor, they're introducing an attached condo product down in 2 locations in Naples. Great locations, it's attached, it's more affordable, and you know what, it also has stairs, because it's a 2-level product, but everyone, 50 is the new 40, and stairs are not being seen as quite the issue that they were 20 years ago when you're building for that buyer group. Another thing, you'll start seeing more attached villas. Those are actually selling very, very well. For those of you familiar with Isles of Collier Preserve down in southeast Naples, that's their best-selling product. And those attached villas are $500,000, but people really like them and they enjoy them. And so I think you'll start to see more of that come to market as well. But everyone's aware of it. Sales have slowed in those high price points. So, and what do builders want? They want sales. So you'll start to see more affordable product, I believe, coming to market. And another thing I'd like to point out too, in North Lee County, in the River Hall development, D.R. Horton, who's a huge builder here, so they introduced their Express brand a couple years ago, which was definitely catered towards, the entry-level home buyer. Well, now they've introduced a brand called Freedom Homes, which is catered towards exactly what you're referring to, that boomer buyer who can't spend $500,000 on a home, but they're ready to move to Florida. They want maybe to choose a couple options in their home, and it's priced, in the mid-200s to low 3s. So that brand is growing nationally, and the first location here in Florida was actually in Fort Myers in the River Hall community. So.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
I have a comment on that and a question for Tyson, but I don't know if we're switching back.
I'll take it and then we'll, okay.
I want to pick back up on the affordability. I noticed in the survey that affordability is one of the main components. But how do you provide a more affordable attached product when regulatory processes take 2 years and are expensive? Governments want you to build public benefits, which are really things the government should be building. They don't like increased densities and they don't like height.
Is that federal or state? Local?
Local, it's a local issue. So you're right, property values are rising, but when you factor in all the other components, how do you then deliver an affordable product?
Well, it's becoming smaller, it's becoming attached. You're going from the single family home on maybe a 40-foot lot to an attached villa or to a fourplex. I see that right now as being the best solution right now, but you're not seeing a ton of it come online. So it's here and there.
But don't you need increased densities in order
Yes.
to achieve that?
Right, exactly. With attached product, you're getting the increased density, and there are many areas around here that are opposed to increasing density, so it's definitely a challenge. And that's why you're only seeing a few pocket communities here and there kind of coming out with it, so.
I just had another question, perhaps someone on the panel might be able to answer. In Southwest Florida, we have seen that there are a lot of second home buyers in some of the higher, more upscale communities such as Bonita Bay, Mediterra, the Brooks. And of course, as we went through the recession, we did see there were a lot of foreclosures in those areas too. How does the change in the economy, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm asking for some help. We've seen a lot of people who have come down here that were in the process of retiring from major corporations, the big ones, where they had great retirements. And I don't really see, just from my limited perspective, a lot of organizations and businesses that are giving the same type of retirements and benefits. And my question is, how does that affect the big picture and the future, maybe in the next 20 years or so? Are we seeing, have we already seen the cap, the top, or am I missing something that, because of my limited perspective in little Southwest Florida, that maybe there is a lot of, revenue out there, and more of the technology companies are picking all that up and taking over, where obviously the old companies, the gas, Exxon, Mobil, Ford, GM, now we're, seeing it change, Google and some of the tech companies. So I guess that's a question.
Tyson, you wanna take a shot at that one?
Pensions are gone, for all intents and purposes. Probably only 20% of the companies that offered pensions 30 years ago offer pensions today, and I'm making that statistic up. By the way, does everybody know the statistic on statistics? 86.3% of all statistics are made up right on the spot. So that's not an accurate number, but I did want to mention that, because that's really, a lot of people said, okay, I've got this pension income coming in. I have Social Security coming in. And then I've got this money, this little bit of money that I saved in my 401k. It was kind of a new thing way back when. It wasn't a lot of money you could put into it back in the day. Well, that's all kind of shifted and changed, because we went through the late 90s and everything went sky high. And a pension is an asset. Remember the movie Wall Street? There's a line in that movie when he says something to the effect of, and the real beauty of this company is the overfunded pension. What's that mean? Well, that means a company can actually take a pension plan, and there's an actuary that sits on the other side of the table that says, okay, you gotta have $5 billion in that pension as a whole. Because actuarially you've got 5,000 people that are retiring. So all that money that's in there, well, if you've got an extra $500,000 in that pension, you can skim the cream off the top and just leave what you need. Because actuarially, that pile of money will take care of all these people for the rest of their lives. Actuarially, right. Then what happens? Well, the money that's in there is invested somewhere. And what if it's in the market? And what if the market goes down? Hello, 2000, 2001, 2002. People say it was 9/11. No. Market rolled over in the beginning of 2000 because we came out of the dot-com bubble, right? So they were projecting, 8, 12, 15% returns on this money that's sitting in this pension, and then what happened? The market dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped. We lose 30, 40% over the course of 2.5 years, and then it bottomed out and turned around and started coming back. But now the companies are going, wow, if that pension went below the minimum, you know what they have to do by law? Put it back in. So it's not only an asset that they can skim the cream, it's a liability. They got to fill it back up. This bucket's got to stay full. If it starts to overflow, you can have all the extra, but if there's a hole in the bottom of the bucket, guess what? You got to put some money in the top. So it was killing the earnings and so on and so forth. So I won't get into too much detail there, but companies looked at that and said, we don't need that. That's a variable liability that we don't need on the books going forward. Let's take that money, let's put a hard dollar or percentage on how much we're willing to put into retirements, and let's redirect that money into a 401k match or a cash balance plan, which is they define how much money goes into it as opposed to how much money you can take out of it at the end. And that's an hour-long conversation. But that money that goes into these 401k plans now is sometimes, and a lot of times, contingent upon how much the employee puts in. So back to your demographic question, have things changed? Absolutely. The psychology of investing has changed. People have to be more responsible for themselves in the future. So they've got to look out and figure out how much money do I need to have when I'm 55, 60, 65 years old. And if I make a certain amount of money or earn return on that over the years, and I get a little bit of a match, and I work for so many years, and how much money do I need to put in every single month in order to get to where I need to go? Because the pension is not there. It's not like I was in the military for 9 years. If I stayed in the military